Hello everybody and welcome back to The Lost Planeswalker. You're here with me, Jesse, The Lost Planeswalker, and today we're talking about the Living Energy Precon Upgrade Guide. I'm going to go through some cards you cut, some cards you should add, and just a general synopsis of what I think of the deck. So starting out, let's look at the two commanders of this deck. We have the face commander of this deck with Saheeli, Radiant Creator, and the co-commander with Pia Nalar, Chief Mechanic. Saheeli here is 1 green, blue, and a red legendary creature, Human Artificer. Whenever you cast an Artificer or Artifact spell, you get an energy. Obviously, you're going to be really benefiting off the artifacts. But at the beginning of combat on your turn, you may pay energy. When you do, create a token that's a copy of target permanent you control, except it's a 5/5 artifact creature in addition to its other types and has haste. Sacrifice it at the beginning of the next end step. So this is a pretty simple strategy and kind of similar to the Modern Horizons deck where you're taking a creature, creating a copy of it. Now in this case, you only have to pay 3 mana to create it, but it gets sacrificed. So we're looking for ETB effects. We're looking for powerful synergy that, we want to get as it enters or dies. Now looking at PNLR, Chief Mechanic, green, blue, and a red legendary creature, Human Artificer. Whenever 1 or more artifact creatures you control deal combat damage to a player, you get 2 energy. And at the beginning of your end step, you may pay 1 or more energy. If you do, create an XX colorless vehicle artifact token named Nalar's Aetherjet with flying and crew 2, where X is the amount of energy spent this way. I think that this is not as powerful. It's pretty good, but I definitely think that Saheeli is the way better commander for this deck and is going to get a lot more play. Pia Nalar, I'm going to be building a separate deck about her, so we'll see how that deck looks later on. But let's dive in and look at those new cards. We have 8 new cards, 9 including Pia here, but the other new cards are Adaptive Omni Tool, Aetherflux Conduit, and Etheric Amplifier. So Adaptive Omni Tool 2, Artifact Equipment. Equipped creature gets +1/+1 for each artifact you control, which that's pretty great. And whenever a equipped creature attacks, look at the top 6 cards of your library. You may reveal an artifact from among them and put it in your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. Equipped for 3. So I think that that's pretty powerful, especially if you're playing an artifact deck. Next up, we have Aetherflux Conduit, 6 mana artifact. Whenever you cast a spell, you get an amount of energy equal to the amount of mana spent to cast that spell. That's really good. Pay 50 energy. Draw 7 cards. You may cast any number of spells from your hand without paying their mana cost. With Aetherflux Conduit, you are definitely ramping up, and it would actually be quite easy to pay, I think, 50 energy if you're able to get there and just dump your hand. Yeah, this is a win con card, and I think that this is very great, especially if you just cast another spell to draw a ton of other cards into your hand. Then we have Etheric Amplifier, 3 generic artifact. Tap it to add 1 mana of any color. 4 and tap, choose 1, activate only as a sorcery. Double the number of each kind of counter on target permanent, or double the number of each kind of counter you have. So we're just talking about Aetherflux Conduit. You have 25, pay 4, double the number of each kind of counter you have. Now you have 50. It's pretty much a no-brainer. It's a really great card, and it's really going to power up energy decks. Now looking at some green cards they're adding, we have Nissa, World Soul Speaker, Pema Trailblazer, and Rampaging Aetherhood. So Nissa here, we're getting a new Nissa, which I think is very fun. And it is kind of fun because we're mixing both Zendikar and Avishkar's abilities. So landfall, whenever a land enters, you get 2 energy, which is great. And then you may pay 8 energy rather than pay the mana cost for permanent spell you cast. So 8 energy for, a spell, whether you have the mana or not, seems pretty great, especially if you can cheat something out very easily. And then the flavor text I thought was very fun. Zendikar still seems so far off, but Chandra is my home. So a very cool card. But the other 2 are nothing to slouch at either. Pema Trailblazer, 2 and a green creature, Elephant Warrior with Trample. When this creature deals combat damage to a player, you get that much energy. And then you may exhaust and pay 6 energy, put 2 +1/+1 counters on this creature, then draw cards equal to the greatest power among creatures you control. Activate each exhaust ability only once. So you can only do this once, which makes sense unless you can flicker this or recast it from your hand, but that seems like a very powerful ability for only 6 mana. And then we have this Rampaging Aetherhood, 4 and a green creature, Snake Hydra with Trample and Ward 2. At the beginning of combat, you get an amount of energy equal to this creature's power. Then you may pay 1 or more energy. If you do, put that many +1/+1 counters on this creature. So essentially, you can double the power of this creature every turn, or pump even more energy into it and make it even bigger, even quicker. So this is definitely a pretty big threat, and I think it could honestly go in any deck. You don't have to be playing an energy deck, in my opinion. I think that this is probably good enough on its own. So very cool card. The last two cards we have here are the Stride Hanger Automaton and the Territorial Aetherkite. The Stride Hanger is 3 generic artifact creature construct. Thopters you control get +1/+1, and if one or more artifact tokens would be created under your control, those tokens plus an additional 1/1 colorless Thopter artifact creature with flying are created instead. This works kind of similarly to Chatterfang, where if you make a token, you get to create an additional token instead. This only counts artifact tokens though, but that's not bad either. And then Territorial Aetherkite, 4 red creature cat dragon with flying and haste. When this creature enters, you get 2 energy. Then you may pay 1 or more energy. When you do, this creature deals that much damage to each other creature. A pretty neat energy board wipe here that can help reset the board with your energy you've accumulated. But now let's dive into those cards you should cut. And honestly, there are so few good/bad energy cards that there was just a few I just didn't like in this deck, and some reprints that I just thought could be replaced with something better. So the cards I think you should cut are Architect of the Untamed, Bootlegger Stash, and Duplicant. So Architect of the Untamed, it's not a bad card. You know, you're gaining energy from landfall, you know, pay 8 to create a colorless beast. I just think that what you're trying to do in this deck really isn't following along with this. It's not really big enough to do anything else other than sit on your board, and there's some other better cards that could just sit on your board and do more. Anyways, Bootlegger Stash is a great reprint, except it's 6 mana and really doesn't do too much in my opinion. I'm not super excited to see this. There's not a lot of cards in this deck that care about artifacts entering. You know, there's definitely different colors that really care about that. Not saying that there isn't some cards in here that do care about you creating those, but it's just not enough synergy where I think paying 6 mana is going to net you some value. And then Duplicant, it's just too expensive, and I'm not really caring to exile somebody else's card and just get a copy of it. You know, energy is pretty specific, so unless somebody else is playing an energy deck at the table, I don't think it's going to be very powerful. The other 3 cards I just didn't think worked particularly well were Loyal Apprentice, Reality Shift, and Retrofitter's Foundry. Loyal Apprentice can make you a Thopter at the beginning of combat on your turn. It's just not doing much. You know, we're not caring about creating as many tokens. You know, we're already doing that in kind of better ways throughout this deck, so I'm not really looking forward to Loyal Apprentice here. It's just too small, I think, for some of the better options. Reality Shift, it's removal piece I don't think we need. There's a lot of other better ones that aren't getting your opponent something potentially better. And then Retrofitter's Foundry, there's a lot of options here. I just don't care for it. I think that there's better things to do, especially with artifacts and other creatures you can include in this deck. So now let's dive into those cards I think you should add. So starting out, we have Aether Refinery, Amped Raptor, and Beast Within. Aether Refinery says if you would get 1 or more energy, you get twice that many instead, which obviously is incredible. Then tap it, you get energy, and then can pay 1 or more. If you do, create an XX black Aetherborn creature token where X is the amount of energy paid this way. Yeah, that's much better. You know, if we're looking at Architect of the Untamed, basically here we can just pay 8 energy and we're getting a creature that's 2 larger, and Aether Refinery is just doubling our benefits. So it's a no-brainer to me. Amped Raptor as first strike. When Amped Raptor enters, you get 2 energy. Then if you cast it from your hand, exile cards from the top of your library until you exile a non-land card. You may cast that card by paying energy rather than paying its mana cost. Yeah, I think that honestly, that's a very cool ability. Modern Horizons bought some really great cards, and we'll see a couple more here. And then Beast Within, destroy permanent. I think it's better than Reality Shift because it only hits creatures. This can hit anything, and a 3/3 beast isn't the end of the world. Moving on, we have Brutaclad, Telecore Engineer, Desynchronization, and Determined Iteration. So Brutaclad is a great card, and honestly, the token we are creating with Saheeli, we are going to want to transform all of our other creature tokens into, and non-creature tokens as well. Brutaclad here is very powerful, so that's when we want to have all those little Thopter tokens, because Brutaclad can turn them into whatever, even another Brutaclad, and then our board goes from, you know, 10 1/1s to 10 4/4s, and our power is, you know, 4 times greater. So I think that he is a very good creature, especially in pretty much any deck you're creating a ton of tokens in, and then create a copy of a big creature. Desynchronization, 2 blue, return each non-land permanent that's not historic to its owner's hand. This is basically going to keep our board on the board and then return everything else, because most of the cards in this deck do something on ETB, early, letting us replay them, and keeping all of our artifacts on the board so we can swing in or do whatever we need to. And then Determined Iteration, great enchantment that lets you proliferate at the beginning of combat, so we can copy our copy that Saheeli makes, get an additional copy of it for just 2 mana every turn. I think is well worth it. Our next 3 cards are Fabricate, Harness Lightning, and Izzet Genitorium. Fabricate here lets you search for any artifact card, put it into your hand, then shuffle, which is a very, very powerful effect, especially with the banger artifacts we got. Harness Lightning, 1 in a red. Choose a target creature, you get 3 energy. Then you may pay an amount of energy. Harness Lightning deals that much damage to that creature. This is a great kill spell that's going to be able to kill, anything big or small. Or if we just want to generate some energy, it's a great way to start there. And then Izzet Genitorium, blue and a red artifact. If you would get 1 energy, you get an additional energy, and you can draw a card if you've paid or lost 4 or more energy this turn, which honestly is pretty easy. Moving on, we have Jaheira, Weatherlight Captain, Kappa Cannoneer, and Neoform. Jaheira here is a staple card in any historic spells deck, which this is, and just being able to refill our hand for just playing our spells. So it's a no-brainer. Kappa Cannoneer lets you tap your artifacts in order to cast this, and it gets bigger and becomes unblockable every time you cast an artifact or an artifact enters, so that can also counter tokens. It just becomes a giant unblockable threat that can knock out opponents. And Neoform, green and a blue sorcery. As an additional cost to cast a spell, sack creature, search library for a creature card with a converted mana cost equal to 1 plus the sack creature's converted mana cost. Put that card onto the battlefield with additional +1/+1 counter on it, then shuffle your library. Notably here, when you create a copy of a target permanent, you also copy the mana value, so that creature that you're getting with Saheeli, you can then sacrifice it to go get something out of your library that will not have to be sacrificed, and it gets counters on it. So that is a very, very cool card, and there's a lot of other things you can do, like you could also add a birthing pod in this deck, which would be able to do a similar thing. And the last 3 cards I think you should add are Thoughtcast, Untimely Malfunction, and Wormcoil Engine. Thoughtcast is a no-brainer to me. You're going to be playing so many artifacts and having them that for 1 blue, drawing 2 is great. Untimely Malfunction lets you destroy target artifact, change target spell or ability with a single target, or 1 or 2 target creatures can't block this turn. And then Wormcoil Engine, great card, Death Touch Lifelink. When it dies, create a 3/3 worm artifact creature token with Death Touch and a 3/3 worm artifact creature token with Lifelink. This would be a great hit with Saheeli, giving us 2 creatures every turn after we get a Death Touch Lifelink haste creature that we can swing in wherever we want. So this deck, I think, was pretty good. I think the cards I suggested could definitely help it. I think that there's a number of other cards you could add to this deck in any number of strategies where you're revolving around the energy, whether you're playing a pod style deck or just trying to generate as much energy as possible to kind of, do a crazy number of things. Like I said, Satya was a great deck that came out during Modern Horizons 3, and some of the best energy cards were created for this deck or already in it. So I think that if you pick this up, you're going to have a lot of fun and really enjoy. But that's it. Thank you so much for watching. Please let me know what you think of the deck. What do you think of my adds or cuts? Is there any other cards that you just would never play in this deck, or something else you would add to it to make it that much better? If you'd let me know in the comments down below, that would be amazing. In addition, if you want to help me out, please leave a like, share this video with a friend, and subscribe. And if you enjoy the videos I make and want to support me in another way, check out my Patreon. That'd be really cool. And today's Scryfall card of the day is Terminate. Freedom is not given, Caesar. It is taken. Ea of Alexandria. Thank you so much for watching. And as always, I'll see you later, Planeswalkers.